This is the main character of my game. His name is Jeff, and he is pretty uninteresting. Slap on a character model though, and things are still a little uninteresting. But once we add idle and running animations, he feels a little more fun to control. Partner that with some sound and particle effects that spawn when he steps, and with each added detail, the amount of fun he is to control increases substantially. It is a feedback loop. When I press a button and get a good amount of feedback, the game feels much better to play. The impact of this feedback loop is really highlighted when Jeff starts to attack. Bit by bit, let's start to add more feedback for the player. We'll start by giving them something to attack. Still pretty underwhelming. Let's give his attacks some visual and sound effects. Now that feels much better. It's already way more fun to attack, but there are more things we can add to improve the feedback. Let's give the monster a flinch animation and a health bar. Alright, almost there. Now we'll add some particle and sound effects on impact, and to really sell the damage, we'll add a bigger particle effect, some screen shake, and a tiny amount of hit stop when the enemy dies. Now that is pretty damn satisfying. Though you may be thinking that this is a bit much for a basic attack. Well, it might be, but this game, Save the Jellies, is my entry to Juice Jam 2, a jam dedicated to making the juiciest game possible in only 9 days. I do think there is more to juiciness than just visual effects and screen shake though. You need to give the person playing the game some purpose. So, the premise of Save the Jellies is to protect these little dudes from the big scary monsters. Time to give the player some anxiety. When the monsters spawn into the map, they will head straight toward the jelly that is closest to them. When they get within range of it, they will attack. One hit and the jelly is no more. To make the player really feel the impact of this action, let's add a sound effect, a big red damage indicator, and a health bar indicating that the player has lost a massive amount of health. This is great. I mean, the game is kinda morbid, but it's pretty impactful, which is the aim, and I think we're on the right track. To make things more interesting, we'll spawn in a bunch more enemies. But it's a bit odd that the enemies just pop up out of nowhere, and because I don't know where the enemies are going to come from, it makes it too difficult to plan how to combat them. And all in all, it just makes the game unplayable. Or maybe I just need to get good. Considering that they're alien-like enemies, I made this UFO model whose AI will fly over to a few different spawn points before spawning the enemies in after some delay. As we have discovered though, without feedback it just doesn't feel great. So to improve the way the spawning mechanic reads, I made this laser-like visual effect and animated the UFO to charge up a bright light and fire off a laser beam. After that happens, the enemy dissolves in, and this feels much smoother. I added some logic to spawn in a new UFO after 5 monsters are destroyed. By the time 5 UFOs spawn into the map, things get pretty intense, and the sound of more and more enemies spawning in really makes the anxiety start to hit harder. At this point, I was running short on time, but decided to try and add these slime pickups that you see laying all over the ground. They work as grenades, and they're a little wonky, but when you do land a good hit with them, it feels pretty satisfying, so I decided to leave them in the game. Maybe I'll submit a post-jam version with a few fixes, but then again, I probably won't. I do think that outside of all the previously mentioned aspects, good-looking characters and environments make games feel fantastic. This is why I spent over 30 hours making the character and other models for this jam. Sure, there's a lot of room for improvement, but I'm pretty happy with the progress I've made. So after adding the basic UI and score counters, I decided to call it a day on this game jam and submitted what I had. You can find the link to the game page in the description below. I've also added Patreon links for free downloads to Jeff and all the other models that I made. I hope you give it a shot and leave some feedback in the comments. Until then though, I'll catch you on the next one.